Hello there. Welcome to the world of Pokémon. My name is Bridget Empire. People call me the poor man's thoughts line. I mean, the YouTube professor. This world is inhabited by creatures called YouTubers. For some people, YouTubers are pets. Others use them for fights. Myself, I do YouTube as a profession. Now, are you a boy or a girl? Apparently, you have to pick one. Sorry, this game was made in 1997. It's not very politically correct. In fact, you might say that Pokémon isn't very woke. And that's not just because of the incredibly racist Pokémon design that's right behind me at this very moment, and oh my god, it's coming close, isn't it? Or its problematic connotations looming over the franchise like the Colossal Titan. Why is it still there? Why did Nintendo think recoloring it purple would make us unsee that? When will Nintendo personally pour bleach into my eyes so that I can unsee this affront to humanity? Okay, sorry, I forgot the question. Okay, gender, stupid concept, let's forget about that. Okay, what is your name? And while you're there, what's my grandson's name? Oh my god, what's my name? Don't worry, dear viewers, that wasn't really me. My memory is perfectly fine. Better than fine, even. I remember just now that I'm Bridget Empire, science and culture correspondent for the Daily Telegraph, the only newspaper in Britain that missed the whole Pokémon cultural phenomenon because Dan was convinced the world was going to end in the year 2000. So from the years 1997 to 2007, we were stuck in a bunker deep underground with only a decades-long supply of Heinz baked beans for company. Heinz baked beans, the only food with enough preservatives to see you through the apocalypse, if you don't want to eat the flesh of your loved ones when you run out of fresh food, that is. Call Heinz today at...
A million housewives every day pick up a tin of beans and say, beans means Heinz.
Pokémon is a video game, anime, trading card, and just general franchise about doing cockfighting. With cocks of just about every shape, size, and colour, but not in a woke way, where it's all equal and everything. God no, you just make your cocks beat each other unconscious for money, just beating your cocks. Going together, two people looking each other across the room, beating their cocks. But it's okay, because they're your friends or something. The cocks, that is, not the people you're doing the cock beating with. I mean, they might be, they should be. This has been the formula for almost 2 decades now, but recently there's been a disturbance in the world of throbbing, bruised cocks. A group of gamers online, from the famous video game enthusiasts at Fox News.
Some of these games are really wild. I mean, they're pretty graphic, pretty gory. You know them, you know, Call of Duty. I don't do any of these, but
like Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, they're simulated violence.
It's a criminal simulator, a murder simulator.
Yeah,
to this 40-year-old fail son,
the quartering friend of the show. He was caught Googling Reddit.
This fucking sent me last night when you sent this in the chat.
I've discovered that this franchise, the 3D cockfighting game for children, has gone woke. Dan, raise the woke alarm.
Do not come.
I'm gonna come.
That's the woke alarm. In the video, Pokémon vows to eradicate toxic gamers, hires $250,000 a year, woke DEI maniac. Pokémon TCG gets woke. You know, some people hire an editor for their actual videos. I think you might need one just for your title game. You could have ended it after the 6th word there, and you would still have lost nothing. In fact, all you did there was just write out the job advert you're complaining about again. Anyway, in the video that I will, for shorthand, call Wokamon Go to the Polls, adult human beard Jeremy Dale Hambley, also known as the Quartering, claims that the Pokémon company is going full woke because they are hiring a DEI officer for their Washington office. You know the right are struggling for new things to get outraged at when this is news. Every company does this. Anyway, Jeremy, despite spending a healthy 12 minutes in this video complaining that the Pokémon company are doing the bare minimum to cover their asses to not get sued for breaching equality laws, or like most companies these days, are trying to make themselves look like an attractive place to work for people who aren't desperately sad assholes with cum stains where their brains should be, it's a whole-ass 40-year-old man. This is a middle-aged man's anti-woke outrage video, and boy can you tell this man is tired. In this video, the Quartering complains that Pokémon is going to be ruined by wokeness because of a single hiring, but also because Niantic, a company which is not related to the Pokémon company and just collaborates with them to make Pokémon Go, tweeted in support of BLM and condemned police brutality, which Jeremy describes succinctly as all this kind of crap.
Pokemon apparently going woke, offering a $200,000 a year salary for somebody to inject wokeness into a beloved IP. By the way, this is not new. This is something that's been going on with beloved Japanese IPs for quite some time.
Chansey, I've come for you, darling. Donovan, I am not a piece of fruit, no matter what anybody says.
So here's the Pokemon Company looking for a director of diversity, equity, and inclusion and social responsibility. You know, by the way, the company that controls Pokemon Go, which I'm not sure if Pokemon Go is still a popular game or not, you know, they've got diversity, equity, and inclusion departments too. They've tweeted about their support for BLM, against police, all this kind of crap. By the way, also, the story continues. I mean, all of this stuff, I'm so happy that people are out there looking around because I guess it's been going on for some time. This is just from a few days ago. Lawyer involved with Pokemon Halo series slams anti-woke gamers, says that it was his job to purge them.
Now this is par for the course for this man, but since he has black parents, I do wonder how he squares having this position online with, you know, being the son of people for whom this directly affects. The bulk of this video is, you can probably imagine, pretty fucking lazy. In fact, for all but a minute or two, this is just Jeremy reading out a job advert and then a Fox News article word for word. All of this outrage is because a lawyer who once worked for the Pokemon Company called people in the alt-right human garbage, which the quartering then equates with his entire audience. Telling that. Imploring them to remember these words when they buy or consume Pokemon products, despite them probably not being who he's talking about, those words being taken out of context, and him not even being with the company anymore.
This dude, it's his job to get rid of human garbage, according to him, for the Pokemon Company, right? The Pokemon Company is hiring somebody and paying them over $250,000 to inject more politics into their game.
Besides this, the female character model in Pokemon Go changed a little bit, but looks pretty much exactly the same, and apparently this is woke too? According to Jeremy, this incredible side-by-side of two people who are, one, not real, and two, look exactly the fucking same, is a sign that you are no longer allowed to see pretty fictional characters. Actually, it's unfair to attribute this to him, since he's just reading someone else's work there again and then putting it as his own work, much like the rest of his video. So I guess I take back what I said earlier. The only original work in this video is him calling BLM crap, which is in itself not an original take. I swear, even as wrong as this guy is about everything, he used to put more effort into being mad online. Right now, he might as well be Asmongold. Hell, James Somerton put more effort into his videos than this guy does. But we'll get into that. Today, in fact, we'll be asking, what does this job application mean? Is Pokemon going woke? What's going on with this rage over a lawyer dunking on chuds? And what the fuck does this have to do with anything?
Isn't this a bit over the top?
I'm sorry, but that's all we've got.
But first, I don't think a lot of the outrage baiters on the right know what the job of a DEI officer entails. A lot of the outrage regarding this recent Pokemon news and the whole scare of a consultancy company Sweet Baby Inc.'s involvement in a bunch of games in recent years revolves around the boogeyman of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which anyone who's worked an actual job will know has become a mainstay of the corporate world for the normal reasons anything is part of the corporate world, because it will save companies money in the long term and improve their reputation. And anyone of you who, like me, have worked in DEI before and tried to use it to make changes in your organization will have quickly realized that, as much as it can be a force for good, it's in large parts just another arm of human resources. No matter how you push, companies are incredibly resistant to actual systemic change. You could potentially foster a less overtly racist attitude at your company if you're willing to put in the usually ridiculous hours of unpaid work to do it, but if we're being realistic, you probably won't, because most companies are just using their DEI departments to create a better image for their companies, and to make them a place lower level employees feel more comfortable working in. I would, on balance, prefer working at a company with a DEI strategy that at least someone there is taking seriously to one without one, as a trans person, but it's still a company, with all that such an entity entails. If you try and use it as a platform for making change, that change will be resisted at every opportunity. But those efforts being made does make it look like the company is doing something to prevent discrimination, and thus it improves both their corporate culture and their public image. That and it helps to have a bunch of people who know relevant anti-discrimination and equality laws around, so that companies don't get sued for doing what companies do all the time, making stupid decisions that can get them tangled up in court cases. On top of that, would you believe it's good for a business if they aren't constantly wrapped up in scandals because of discriminatory practices? You see, if I were the boss baby, And I heard I could make more money by hiring one guy to make sure we don't fuck up super bad, instead of paying out a bunch of money for lawyers and out-of-court settlements. I might just do that. What people like the quartering are scared of is people actually changing companies to become more equitable. And I'd like it if we could do that, but that's not actually what DEI does. It mostly covers the company's ass. If you could truly make a company an equitable place to work, it wouldn't be a company in the way we traditionally think of it anymore, with the CEO pouring money down the necks of their shareholders like they're baby birds. It'd be at the very least a co-op, right? And I know from personal experience of working with close friends doing free labour to try and change racist attitudes at one of my former workplaces, that upper management are unlikely to listen. They might hear you out, they might ask what they should do about it, but in my experience, they won't do anything. And then they'll use the fact that you spent all that time trying to make the place less bigoted as a badge of honour that they've had people working on such initiatives at their place of work. If I'm sounding a little cynical here, it's because I've been burned before. DEI is a good thing, in my eyes. It's just incrementalist, when often the problems in these organisations are systemic. And thus whatever change these departments and initiatives can succeed in making will, at best, not go far enough, and at worst, make it easier for a company to say they're a welcoming and diverse workplace while being just as problematic as they were before. I don't know, maybe I'm too jaded on this stuff. I am a big scary commie after all. The corporate world makes me want to throw myself off a bridge, so I'm open to having my mind changed on this one. All that aside, if we were actually to go about making Pokémon woke, we'd have a hell of a job. Even if we went by just the original definition of the word, which the quartering definitely does not mean, we'd have to become aware of systemic racism in the franchise. And that would mean, just for a fucking start, getting rid of Jinx. She has to go. This Pokémon is just a racist caricature with stats attached. We don't need a blackface Pokémon, and frankly, no one wants the blackface Pokémon. Throw her in the bin. We've already gotten rid of the national debt, so not every Pokémon is in every game, so now is your chance. Frankly, no one will miss it. The one Pokémon that we might think about getting rid of, that would be controversial if we truly want to make the franchise a place free of racism though, at least in appearance, is the Abraline. You see, in Japanese, Kadabra and Alakazam are named after Uri Geller, the Israeli spoon-bending scam artist, who has argued that their designs are anti-Semitic due to the 5-pointed star and lightning bolts in their design. While they may not have been meant that way, you can certainly see why he took them that way, since they were literally given his name. In his own words, Nintendo turned me into an evil occult Pokémon character. Nintendo stole my identity by using my name and my signature image. And while the symbols Geller pointed to as additional evidence of the anti-Semitism behind their design are apparently taken from cards used in researching pseudoscientific claims, Geller, after having been confronted by, in his own words, hundreds of children thrusting Pokémon cards at him to autograph while chanting his name, can't really be blamed for putting 2 and 2 together there, even if it wasn't meant maliciously. Even if it wasn't meant maliciously, it would probably have been best to remove those symbols from the Pokémon designs, and change the name of the creatures. And while in 2020 Geller apologised to Nintendo over the controversy and voiced his approval in the use of the Pokémon bearing his name going forward, if we're being calm and collected about this, it would be best to shed any associations of any Pokémon with even suspected anti-Semitism. And this is without even getting into the whole God of War and Lucario art stuff, or the Vaporeon copy pasta. Hey guys, did you know that in terms of male, human and female Pokémon breeding, Vaporeon is the most compatible Pokémon for humans? Not only are they in the field egg group, which is mostly comprised of mammals, Vaporeon are on average are 3 foot 3 inches tall and 63 pounds. That means they're large enough to be able to handle humans. Let's go! In Wokamon Go to the Polls, Jeremy focuses mainly on a tweet by PC Focus, which reads, "The Pokemon Company is going to pay someone $200,000 yearly to push them into wokeness. Another Japanese IP, ignoring their original audience in favour of that of modern audiences." With the actual substance of the tweet just being screenshots of a job advert on greenhouse.io. So what does this actually mean? Well, it means the Pokemon Company in Bellevue, Washington is hiring a DEI officer, so a standard corporate role has opened up. This is as expected as them hiring an HR manager or a janitor. It's not a ploy to push the company into wokeness, whatever the fuck that means. They're not going to do anything about Jinx, for example. They're not even based in Japan, where most of the big decisions in the company are being made. This is a position that exists to make the company look good, and yeah, it might on balance make the place a better place to work, but it's not going to push the Pokemon Company into wokeness. At best, it'll mean that underserved employees might get treated a little better on balance. Even the advert itself puts this in very dry and corporate terms. In fact, just going through the actual advert, it hits on some of the reasons companies have DEI officers in the first place. Employee retention is better at diverse workplaces. Diverse workplaces are more likely to have a wide range of ideas to solve problems, and most importantly for the company's bottom line, the employee will remain current on the laws, regulations, and policies pertaining to equal employment opportunity programs and provide leadership on this across the organization. Yes, corporate America is more and more invested in looking like it cares about the plight of minorities, and that it wants to help to move society into the future. Now, if you're a socialist like me, you'll know that they don't actually care about that. But it's important that they look like they do, because they're moving into the future with the rest of us, and they want to keep hiring people. So they need to look like they care about this stuff, because they want to hire people who care, who want to think they're at a workplace that cares about them and the things that they care about. We're not in the 1950s anymore. In fact, if you tried to run your firm like you were Don Draper today, if word got out of what you were doing, you'd be buried in lawsuits. Okay, maybe that's a bad example, because Draper was, if anything, the progressive one in that firm, and let's be real, these bigwigs rarely get caught. They still hold all the power, but it's important for their image that they look like they don't. They need to look less like a petty tyrant king and more like a benevolent dictator. Lest people start questioning why we as a society let them have all this money and power to begin with.
I'm gonna come.
Besides all that, Jesus, it's hard to get a job these days. These guys in this advert want 12 plus years of experience, plus 5 years of people management experience. That's 17 years you'd have to have been preparing for this job opening. 17 years ago, I was still in school. The only people with that experience level are going to be on the verge of retirement. That or they're time travelers or something. And speaking of Niantic, Jeremy uses them as an example of a company that went woke, because the company made a statement in support of the BLM movement and against police brutality. But that just shows how little substance is behind any of these people's claims. Niantic are just another company, and in fact the company was last year sued for systemic sexual bias, something that could have been made less egregious if they'd have put more money and personnel into their DEI department? Maybe? Probably not. But this is a textbook case of the reason these departments exist, and also how companies use and abuse their employees, which for us normal people is awful because they're people who deserve to be treated with respect, but for corporations it's bad because it means a bad reputation and increased employee turnover, because the boards of most companies, let's be honest, are stacked wall to wall with the kind of people who'd sell their own mothers for another quarter of growth. In fact, this article makes it clear the reason these DEI departments are so important for these companies. They act as an extra line of defense and reputation-saving devices for the firm. A former Niantic employee filed a lawsuit against the AR gaming company on Friday, alleging that it devalued the work of female employees and women of colour, denied equal pay to women employees and women of colour. The lawsuit, which is seeking class action status, accuses Niantic of creating a boys' club. The employee was laid off as part of last week's job cuts at the company, which affected about 230 staffers. The employee, who is an anonymous Jane Doe, but is described in the complaint as an Asian female, started work at Niantic in February 2020, with a salary of $70,000, the complaint says. Later that year, she was promoted and received a raise to about $84,000. But in approximately 2021, she learned that Niantic was paying a male colleague more money, even though she had a higher job title and more responsibilities than he did. The employee discussed her concern with other female staffers, and sexism and equal pay were brought up in the company employee resources group for women, Wolfpack. But when the employee brought her concerns to Niantic's Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Director and Principal People Partner, they made clear that they and male upper management at Niantic were hostile to her complaints or voiced concerns about sexism or sexual bias in the workplace. The executives in the meeting also allegedly said her job evaluations were affected by her discussing workplace issues with her colleagues, and said that she was paid below the range because she had raised issues with her colleagues. So yeah, far from DEI employees dragging companies into wokeness, they are another arm of the same corporate voice, with a friendlier face, and if you're lucky, better intentions. Now, people who work in DEI departments, of whom I've met a couple, are lovely, and I'm sure they want to make these companies a better place to work, but that's a struggle, and unfortunately not what those roles are actually designed to do. It's not the fault of the people working there that they're being used by these companies, but it's the nature of working for any private company. Their goal is making a profit. That's it. Everything else is just secondary to that end. That aside, it's clear why Jeremy would be uncomfortable with the idea of a company that has more obstacles for marginalised people to be walked all over without anywhere to go for help. After all, if you've heard of the guy before, you probably know him as the guy that was banned for life from Magic the Gathering tournaments for repeated harassment allegations, including telling one woman he wanted to cut a slit through her bodysuit so that they could pleasure each other through it, and making repeated allusions to anti-Semitic caricatures and making jokes about the Holocaust. This wasn't just stuff he said in private either, not that that would make it better, but he uploaded videos of him doing this awful shit to his YouTube channel, so I wonder why someone like this would be worried about nerdy hobby companies getting more sophisticated with shielding themselves from association with people like him and actually committed. It's a mystery.
I took some modern dance when I was a young lad. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2.
So now that we've dealt with that bit, what's this about an anti-chud lawyer? And why is Fox News covering this as if anyone there knows what a Pokémon is? Aren't these the same people that were claiming back in the day that collecting Pokémon was devil worship?
This character over here is called Mewtwo. Every time that you see Mewtwo, he's in this pose. 3 fingers. It means Hail Satan.
So you might be able to guess that the framing of the Fox News article claiming lawyers for the Pokémon company, calling their loyal fanbase human garbage, that the quartering takes in completely uncritically and in fact spins for the worse, is kind of off. No surprises there. I'm sure Americans know this, but in Europe, Fox News has been an international joke since the Bush era. The fact that it's called a news channel, even though everyone knows it's just an unapologetically far-right outrage channel, has been making the world think all Americans are the worldview of Donald Trump for decades now.
I'm gonna come.
So, having said that, it's no surprise they're not being very forthcoming about the reason Dan McGowan, former employee of the Pokémon Company and Bungie, and the producer of a surprisingly good live-action Pokémon movie Detective Pikachu, had some harsh words to say about some gamers in a now-deleted Twitter thread. Yes, Dan could have been more careful with his wording when he said this stuff, but was he wrong? 20 years in games, 17 in the C-suite. And so I am well situated to say, these people blaming one consultancy for everything they don't like are again demonstrating they know nothing about the subject they purport to be discussing. They are sexist and racist. And it never occurs to them that the reason nobody made games for them was because nobody wanted to make those kind of games. Nobody wants your money because no one wants you in their environment. Take it from someone most of whose job was figuring out ways to get rid of you. Trust and safety departments exist to get assholes out of the gaming environment. You end up creating them to get rid of assholes, because adult humans don't want to spend their leisure times with assholes. You're a Gamergater? Fuck off, you goddamn child. By the way, if you're fucking crying about the fact that I'm telling you to eat shit, think about why you're such a person that the producer of Detective Pikachu thinks you're human garbage, and maybe work on being less shitty. Dan here is referring to the people trying to make a second Gamergate happen, attacking decisions to have women or people of colour and queer people in games, something that, if you watch my Assassin's Creed video or, met people working in games, you'll know that a bunch of people working on these titles have been trying to get to happen for years and years. In fact, a bunch of the misogyny I talked about at the creative level in Ubisoft around the Assassin's Creed series revolved around repeated efforts to have female main characters in the series by the teams creating them, only for those decisions to be vetoed by the company's CEO, who we all know now is a fucking monster. What Dan is trying to say, if you take this within the context of him having worked at these companies, is that the people harassing minorities and attacking creative decisions to include minorities and women in their games in the name of uncovering some evil conspiracy to destroy video games as a medium, don't speak for the people working on these games, nor do they speak for the majority of fans, most of whom don't notice that there's one more black person than usual on screen, don't care or think it's neat. And this is especially obvious if you consider the fact that this thread was in response to the manufactured outrage about consultancy firm Sweet Baby Inc., who were going around to different companies consulting on having diversity in games so that companies could receive massive grants. Again, the companies are doing this for money, not because they have a secret woke agenda. And those grants would look very nice in their pockets, as well as allowing the teams working on these games to make decisions they've been pushing for years. In fact, Dan is clearly talking about the calls for a second Gamergate against Sweet Baby Inc. in the first tweet, and anyone that was around for the first Gamergate will know exactly why people don't react well for calls for a second one. We have Gamergate to thank for the rise of a bunch of the worst fascists around today. Steve Bannon, for example. The result of Gamergate in the end was years of horrific harassment against women, a bunch of weird jokes I can't talk about without being demonetized, the making of the careers of people who would go on to be fascist thought leaders, and worst of all, the idea that Graham Linehan was a feminist. So, with that in mind, could Dan have worded this better? Sure, but he's also some guy on Twitter. He's not the head of the Pokémon company, he doesn't even work for them anymore, and frankly, given what the first Gamergate was like, calling people who see that and call for more human garbage? Kind of understandable. And if you take the idea that his job was figuring out ways to get rid of people like this personally, you might be the one with the problem. By saying you, he doesn't mean literally you, words can mean different things. He's talking about the people who spent their every waking moment screaming about video games going woke and harassing voice actors and developers. Remember how when The Last of Us 2 came out, a bunch of the worst type of gamers got sad their favourite character died, and decided the logical response to that was to harass the character responsible's voice actor off the internet. These are the people he means. If you think that means you, then ask yourself, why are you associating yourself with people that harass women for voicing a character that did a thing you didn't like? or that made a video game you didn't like, or just put characters in a game that you didn't personally identify with. You're more than that, aren't you? You've got family, friends, people who love you, people who make you laugh and that you make laugh. If you've been making your sense of self attached to the idea that you're a crusader against video games going woke, for the love of God, detach yourself from this. You don't need to be in the trenches screaming at people to stop putting women in games to be a gamer. In fact, Dan McGowan is right when he insinuates that the majority of gamers aren't like this. Hell, I'm not even telling you to touch grass, just don't get into fights with people on the internet about how video games aren't always to your taste. And maybe stop watching The Quartering. I mean, not just because he has bad takes or because he's a serial harasser. I mean, there's that. But also just because this fucking video I've been talking about was basically just him reading a Fox News article. Do you want to be the only person under 70 who gets their news from Fox News? Let that be your wake-up call.
The Pokémon trading card game is a new collectible card game that is made and distributed by Wizards of the Coast. What is a wizard? Male practitioner of black magic.
To everyone else, the answer to the question, is Pokemon becoming Wokemon, is no. But it should. I'm watching you, Ishihara-san, and I'm starting up a new campaign. A campaign to inject wokeness into Pokemon once and for all. And it starts with getting rid of this fucking nightmare. Get rid of Jinx. And while we're at it, can you just let your games cook for longer before they release so they're more playable? And why was there no Legends Arceus DLC when it was the best game you've ever made, despite there being tons of DLC for Scarlet Violet? And put in a fucking hard mode in your games, for the love of God. I know you want this game accessible to children, but I want to feel challenged. Please. Most importantly, though, fuck Jinx. And thanks for watching. Hey, thank you for watching this video, all the way to the end. If you like this video, why not like it, leave a comment, subscribe, tell your friends about it. I am unfortunately quite poor now, so if you have a few coins burning your hole in your pocket and you hate to see a tramp like me down on the luck, why not help me get out of my overdraft? Send me some money, please. Please, I would like it. You can give me one-time donations on Coffee or PayPal, links below as always, or better yet, sign up to my Patreon, where you get early videos, access to the members-only Discord, my Nintendo Switch friend code, and exclusive content, such as long-form interviews with previous guests of the show. In addition to all that good stuff, you'll also, if you sign up, get your name... Is that finished? Come on back on Poker Rap. Get your name read out at the end of each video, just like these lovely people. Okay, let's do this. Yeah, okay. Sarah Richardson, Jason Haig, Frank McManus, Susan Foster, Helena, Sierra Whiskey, Orestria, Ali Catgirl, Brian N. Brian, John N. Those were two separate names. Scully, Jan, Lloyd Luciente, Jason Cribbett, Shield Baden, Robin Podolsky, Exploding Turtle, Casual Observer, Terry Roberts, Manta Ray, Courtney Burmack, Sleepy Slug, Philippa Brother, Soma Piglet, Brain Douche, Garty Wolf, Hayden Gaylor, Greg Noble, Deanna McMillan, Caroline Regalado, Alexander Lilly, PJ Lisbrough, Howard Locke, Lara Van Loon, Narania Scarjan, and Joey Cobalt. You gotta catch them all! You don't. Please don't catch my patrons. They deserve to have free-range lives, free from oppression and being put in a cage like they're chickens in a chicken run. Gotta start it to Patreon! Okay, I'll stop singing now. Hello there. You were close. Hey, Ash. I think my throat's too bad to do that voice the whole thing. I'll leave this here for the end, in case you want to know that I can do the voice. I can do the... Well, I don't know if I can do the voice. My brain thinks I can. Hey, Ash. Hey, Ash. Go, Pikachu. Those kind of things. Voice acting real? Guys, anyone want to hire me for a project? I like doing the voices, guys. Pokemon, don't be racist, please. My pronouns are her and she. I'm a lesbian, won't be kissing any man. Climate change is true. Your brain has been turned to stew. Leave me alone and I'll leave you. Pokemon, bigotry is bad. Jesus fucking Christ. Bad things make me say it.